If you own an AV right now, or you're sitting at a dealership thinking of buying one, you are banking on a technology that is already a walking ghost. You've been told lithium-ion is the future. You've been sold $60,000 cars on the promise that they are the absolute bleeding edge of human engineering. But behind closed doors, the giants of the automotive world are quietly panicking. They are pouring billions into a new architecture, solid-state and sodium-ion technology that doesn't just charge faster or drive further. It fundamentally destroys the economics of the car you currently own. In just a few years, the heavy, liquid-cooled battery powering your expensive vehicle is going to look like a flip phone in the era of the smartphone. This isn't a video about chemistry. It's a money story. It's about the brutal reality of planned obsolescence and the multi-billion-dollar race to own the next century. So let me be completely transparent about the roadmap today, because I am not going to bore you with periodic tables. First, we are going to look at the illusion of the modern EV. The lithium-ion battery in your driveway is actually a fragile, compromised piece of tech that is secretly draining your money. Second, the paradigm shift. How two distinct technologies, sodium-ion at the bottom and solid-state at the top, are completely breaking the rules of what a car costs to build. Third, we will expose the invisible time bomb, the financial trap waiting for anyone buying a current-generation electric vehicle in 2026. Fourth, I am going to argue against myself. I will give you the absolute best reasons why these new batteries might be a delayed promise to Steelman the other side. And finally, the macro picture: who actually owns this tech, and why they are desperate to keep you buying the old stuff for just a little while longer. The illusion of the modern EV. Let's start with a hard truth about the car sitting in your driveway. For the last decade, we have been living in a lithium-ion bubble. The industry has sold us a narrative that these batteries are the pinnacle of progress. And yes, compared to a combustion engine from 1998, they are incredible. But when you look closely at what you are actually buying for $50,000, the illusion starts to crack. Think about what a lithium-ion battery actually is. It is essentially a volatile, highly sensitive chemical soup. Traditional lithium-ion batteries use a flammable liquid electrolyte to transport ions back and forth. Because it's liquid, and because it's flammable, it hates being too cold, and it absolutely despises being too hot. When you buy a modern EV, you aren't just buying a battery. You are buying hundreds of pounds of life support systems just to keep that battery from ruining itself. You are buying heavy-duty liquid cooling systems. You are buying reinforced steel and aluminum armor to protect the pack from the slightest physical impact. Because if that liquid electrolyte gets punctured, you don't just get a broken car, you get a chemical fire that burns at thousands of degrees. All of that armor, all of those cooling pumps, all of that thermal management adds weight. Massive, tire-shredding weight. A standard modern AV is well over 4,500 pounds. Some of the electric trucks hitting the market are tipping the scales at 7,000 or 8,000 pounds. You are paying for that weight every single day. You pay for it in decreased efficiency. You pay for it when your tires wear out twice as fast as they used to. And then there is the degradation tax. The automotive industry loves to whisper about this, but let's say the quiet part out loud. Based on the latest 2026 data tracking tens of thousands of EVs, the average lithium-ion battery degrades by about 2–3% per year. But if you rely heavily on high-power, DC fast chargers, the 150 kilowatt and 350 kilowatt stations that they tell you are the future of road trips, that degradation jumps to 3% a year. The very act of charging your car quickly is slowly destroying its capacity. High-voltage DC charging generates internal cell heat rapidly, accelerating chemical aging. You are paying a premium for a fuel tank that physically shrinks every time you aggressively fill it up. A battery replacement still costs anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000. Even if you never have to replace it, that loss of range is a silent killer of value. You are paying top dollar for a compromised, transitional technology. Lithium-ion isn't the finish line. It was just the waiting room. The paradigm shift. This brings us to the shift. The reason the ground is moving beneath our feet right now. The automotive world is being split into two distinct fronts: and neither of them involves traditional lithium-ion. Let's look at the floor first, sodium-ion. If you want to understand why legacy automakers are terrified, look at sodium. For years, the price of an EV has been chained to the price of lithium. And the lithium market is a geopolitical nightmare. Between June 2025 and April 2026, lithium carbonate prices in China surged nearly 190%. When the raw materials spike, your car gets more expensive. Sodium-ion breaks that chain completely. Sodium is one of the most abundant elements on planet Earth. It's literally in the ocean. It's cheap, it's everywhere, and you don't need complex geopolitical negotiations to mine it. For a long time, critics laughed at sodium. They said it was too heavy, that it couldn't hold enough energy for a car. They were wrong. Companies like CATL, the largest battery maker on Earth, didn't just dabble in sodium. They poured $1.5 billion into a decade of research. And right now, in 2026, it is hitting the streets. Changan Automobile recently took a fleet of sodium-ion-powered SUVs into the freezing wilderness of Inner Mongolia, running them up snow-covered slopes in negative 30 degrees Celsius temperatures. Traditional lithium-ion batteries curl up and die in that kind of cold. The sodium batteries just kept going. What does this mean for your wallet? It means the bottom is falling out of the AV pricing market. When you remove expensive lithium, cobalt, and nickel, you can build a highly capable urban AV for a fraction of the cost. Sodium-ion is establishing a new, ruthlessly low price floor for basic transportation. But what if you don't want basic? What if you want the 500-mile range, the blistering acceleration, the luxury SUV? That is where we hit the ceiling, solid state. If sodium-ion is the revolution of the cheap, solid state is the holy grail of performance. Remember that flammable, temperature-sensitive liquid soup inside your current car? Solid-state technology throws it in the garbage. It replaces the liquid with a solid structure, usually a ceramic, polymer, or sulfide glass. The moment you remove the liquid, everything changes. The fire risk drops to practically zero. Solid-state systems don't trigger thermal runaway until they hit nearly 250 degrees Celsius, compared to just 90 degrees for your current lithium-ion car. Because they don't catch fire easily, you don't need the hundreds of pounds of heavy metal armor. You don't need the massive, complex liquid cooling pumps. Without all that life support, you can pack the cells incredibly close together. The energy density skyrockets. Today's best lithium-ion batteries give you about 200 to 300 watt-hours per kilogram. The solid-state batteries entering commercialization in 2026 are targeting 400 to 500 watt-hours per kilogram. Translated from engineering speak to real life. An electric vehicle that weighs the same as a gas car charges in 5 minutes because it can handle massive voltage without overheating and drives over 600 miles on a single charge. This isn't science fiction anymore. Semi-solid-state batteries are already dominating the high-end drone markets in 2026. China is releasing its first official solid-state battery standards this year. Toyota, Samsung SDI, and QuantumScape are locking in their commercial timelines. The paradigm has shifted. Sodium-ion has solved the cost problem. Solid-state has solved the performance problem. And your current lithium-ion car is stuck awkwardly in the middle. The invisible time bomb. Here is where the macroeconomic reality lands directly in your driveway. This is the invisible time bomb ticking inside every new AV sold today. When you buy a car, you make a bet on its residual value. You assume that in 5 years, you can trade it in and recoup a decent chunk of your money. But residual value relies on the technology aging gracefully. What happens to the resale value of your $60,000 lithium-ion SUV the exact moment a solid-state equivalent hits the lot next door? Imagine it is 2028. You want to sell your used 2024 EV. It has 60,000 miles on it. The battery has degraded by 10%. It takes 40 minutes to charge at a fast station, and in the winter, the range drops by 20%. You are asking $25,000 for it. But right across the street, a dealership is selling a brand new, next-generation EV. Maybe it's a sodium-ion commuter car that costs $20,000 brand new, immune to the cold. Or maybe it's a mid-tier solid-state crossover that charges in 8 minutes with a 500-mile range. Why would anyone buy your heavy, slow-charging, degrading lithium-ion car when the fundamental architecture of the market has evolved? They won't. We are looking at the potential for catastrophic depreciation. Millions of consumers are financing current generation EVs on 72-month loans. They're going to be upside down on those loans in a way we haven't seen in modern automotive history. You are not buying a long-term asset right now. You are holding a hot potato. The industry knows this. It's why EV lease rates have been aggressively subsidized by the manufacturers to hide the terrifying projected residual values. They are trying to clear out the lithium-ion inventory, extracting the last possible dollars from the old paradigm before the new one forces a total reset. If you buy a lithium-ion EV today, you are the final customer of a dying era. You are buying the world's most expensive iPhone 7 the week before the iPhone X is announced. The depreciation isn't just going to be bad, it is going to be structural. The skeptic's corner now. Let me stop right here. Let me turn around and argue against myself. Because if you're going to make decisions with your money, you deserve to hear the counterarguments made properly. There is a very real case that this panic is premature. First, let's talk about the infamous 5 years away joke. If you follow battery tech, you know the running gag, solid-state batteries are the technology of the future, and they always will be. Lab breakthroughs happen every Tuesday, but scaling a chemical miracle from a sterile laboratory to a gritty, high-volume manufacturing plant is brutally difficult. Skeptics will tell you that manufacturing solid-state batteries requires fundamentally new machines, new clean room environments, and new assembly techniques prone to immense failure rates early on. They will argue that the first batch of solid-state cars won't be cheap. They will be $120,000. Ultra-luxury flagships, not affordable crossovers, and industrial momentum is real. Legacy automakers and massive battery conglomerates have sunk hundreds of billions of dollars into lithium-ion gigafactories. You do not simply unplug a multi-billion-dollar factory and tell it to start making ceramic solid-state cells tomorrow. Furthermore, the charging infrastructure is built around the voltage limits of current lithium-ion cars. Pushing a true solid-state battery to charge in 5 minutes requires megawatt-level charging that the average corner station simply cannot support yet. The counterargument is that your lithium-ion car is actually a safe bet because it is a mature, globally supported technology. It is the devil we know. Buying into Generation 1 solid-state tech could mean buying into unforeseen wrinkles in a technology that might be too expensive for the mass market for another decade. That is the defense, and it is a strong one. The macro conclusion, but here is where that defense falls apart. It assumes the Western legacy automakers get to dictate the timeline. It assumes that they can afford to milk their current lithium-ion investments for another decade while they slowly figure out solid-state. They don't have that luxury anymore. The timeline is no longer being set in Detroit or Wolfsburg. It is being set in Shenzhen, Tokyo, and Seoul. CATL is putting commercial sodium-ion production on the board. Toyota, quietly holding more solid-state patents than anyone else on Earth, is moving aggressively. The competitive moat has evaporated. If a legacy automaker tries to drag its feet and force you to buy heavy, expensive lithium-ion cars for the next 7 years, a competitor from across the ocean will gladly hand you a lighter, safer, cheaper alternative. The wall of tariffs might protect the local market for a little while, but technology leaks through walls. Prices leak through walls. The rules of what a car is supposed to cost and how long it is supposed to last are being rewritten in laboratories right now, and the consumer is the last to get the memo. You are standing on the showroom floor, being asked to sign a 7-year loan for a technology that the smartest engineers on the planet are actively working to render obsolete by next Tuesday. So here is the final ultimatum, and the question I actually want you to answer in the comments below. Knowing exactly what is coming down the pipeline, knowing about the sodium-ion price floor and the solid-state performance ceiling, would you buy a brand new $50,000 lithium-ion EV today? Or would you hold the line, drive your current gas car into the ground, and wait for the market to actually reset? Are you willing to be the last person to buy the old technology, or are you waiting for the true next generation? Tell me where you land. If this video gave you a clearer picture of the money actually at stake, hit the like button. Subscribe if you want to understand the actual mechanics of how this industry is shifting, because next time we are diving into the grid itself.